Hi guys, this is the third time I've had to restart this. Start to say hi and just say something just off the wall wrong where I'm going. Anyhow, as many of you probably know, I'm April from As She Is of the Woods. Most of you are probably here from there, but if you're not, come find me there on Instagram, links in bio, and just say hi, learn more about me. What I do here is answer questions that are submitted through my website, wildwoodapothecary.org, links in bio. Herbal health questions. It can be something, I've had extreme questions to simple questions, how-tos, anything that's related directly to health, just any kind of question about herbs, really. And once again, you can find that link if you want to submit your own question on wildwoodapothecary.org. So, I've been pretty busy with all kinds of stuff, with all sorts of stress. You know how that goes. My shop update that many of you know about, that I have once a month for my herbal offerings, is coming up this Sunday, the 26th. As long as those days and dates match up, that's when it is. So I've been there's a table here to the left of me with it takes me a long time to make all this stuff, and I went down pretty bad from a Benzo wave withdrawal recovery stuff. So I'm a week behind on doing stuff, so hang in there with me. And because of that, because I can only push myself so hard, and I started doing these to set limits because I get tons of DMs on Instagram, direct messages from people wanting herbal health advice, and even though I say I won't answer them, before I did this I did, and I would spend hours and end up feeling really drained, and at the end of it I only would help one person. So my answer to that, without completely cutting off people completely, that came out weird, is to do these videos. So I answer some of your questions, and then when people ask me about a question that I've already answered here, I can direct you here, so the knowledge spreads, has a big R factor, just instead of just the one. So if this is your first video of this series, you'll notice me looking at this book a lot. And I know I've said this in every other one, but let's just assume this is your first one you've watched. I'm dealing with benzodiazepine damaged brain. So I mess up words, I say things backwards, and while I have a lot of this knowledge, I can't on demand pull it out of my mouth. See how well that went? So I take time to go over what you're dealing with, and I write down what I would do if I was in this situation. Once again, I'm not a doctor in any way, shape, or form. If you're super sick, go to your doctor. Don't like that doctor? Find a different one. But nothing here should be substitute for medical advice. So take it with a grain of salt. And my word is not gospel. These are my opinions. So let's jump right in here. A gal asked me about herbs for daily health. What can we do to just optimize our health? And that's a great mindset, a way to start thinking in, because so often herbalists and other people, they follow the heroic tradition where we want instant results. We want to take this herb, take this pill, take this tea, and feel a change within our body pretty immediately. And a lot of that is from the pharmaceutical mindset, where we do take this pill and something happens. So we're kind of trained that way. But building health through optimum nutrition is not simply masking a symptom. It's supporting the entire body to bring our health levels up, and then we can address those issues, or they might resolve themselves. You'd be surprised at how many of our society's physical health and mental health issues are from sheer lack of nutrition. We are the most obese, under nutritioned. We're really sick, even though we have ample amounts of food. But it's not healthy food, so like we're malnourished. That's the word I was looking for. We're the most malnourished country with the most abundant amount of food. We can eat and eat and eat and still be malnourished. We can be 400 pounds and still be malnourished. We're not getting the right type of fats, the right type of nutrition. What we're eating isn't digesting. So, see my brain click there. Anyhow, so for this, there's a bunch of things that I recommend without being overwhelming when I say a bunch of stuff. Right off the bat, you know I'm going to recommend herbal infusions. So it's really important to get our nutrition in a way that our body can readily accept it. And I can talk about like cooked foods and non-cooked foods, which one should and shouldn't be, and there is scientific data behind those. But when we make herbal infusions, and there's a link in the bio here, description, yeah, of how to make those, a video I've done that's super easy. So when we make these infusions, it's basically you're putting an ounce of herb, or a cup usually, you know, if you don't have a scale, into a quart jar. We're pouring boiling water over it, or we're putting a cap on. Don't shake it, it'll spray everywhere. And then we're letting that sit for 4 hours, straining it out, and drinking a cup a day. And you're like, oh, it's just long brewed tea, basically. But what that does is as the water cools, all the nutrition and medicinal values of the plant are pulled into the water. And so you can see how that's stronger than just brewing tea for a little bit. Plus, if you really, really cook herbs for a prolonged time for the sake of medicinal, all those values tend to get cooked away. So I would do, right off the bat, nettle infusion. You guys see me recommend this all the time. And I have gotten some questions from people that are like, why do you even do these videos if every video you're basically recommending like the same herb just in different ways? Well, here's the deal. You should be wary of an herbalist who has one herb for every ailment under the sun. And I mean multiple herb, like, oh, you have a cough, take this. Oh, you have, you know, this, take this. Oh, this, and they're all different. Well, when we get to know plants really well, let's say, you know, nettle's really good for building our energy levels and depleted mineral reserves, but it's also good for adrenaline support, and it's also good for metabolism support, and a million other things under the sun. So we can suggest one herb all the time for a varying amount of things. Then I would also suggest Comfrey. And once again, you guys have heard me suggest that from everything from gut issues to skin issues to, well, let's add in bone issues. Let's add in amazing levels of calcium and too many vitamins to list, really. It's crazy how much it has. And so adding that infusion in would be great too. And then I would also do Oatstraw, which is a really healing nervine. It's about the only nervine that I feel comfortable taking with benzodiazepine damage, because it's my GABA receptors up here that are damaged. And the last thing you want to do is stimulate them when they're trying to rest and repair from overstimulation in the first place. And then kelp is amazing for women. It's thyroid support. Be sure you're not on thyroid medication taking that one, because they kind of contradict each other. It's too much. It's good for your iron. It greases your gut. It makes your libido go strong. It's just going to build optimum nutrition. And then if you're still in your moon times, if you've not gone into full menopause where you stop bleeding, red raspberry leaf would be good. And no, don't get me wrong, you can still use this, but it's more of a womb tonifying herb. So, I mean, it can lead to increased fertility, so keep that in mind if you guys are still of childbearing age and plan on adding it in. But it's really going to just nourish a really important part of our body. And then red clover is really good whether you're still bleeding or you're in full menopause. It helps support our hormonal. It's really great if you're having hot flashes from menopause, anything like that. Now you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a long list of herbs and it's so overwhelming. Don't be freaked out. Pick one or two. Start with nettle and comfrey. Make sure it's domestic comfrey, not wild comfrey. Wild comfrey is poisonous. To take internally. Or you could do Oatstraw and nettle, or you could just do nettle, although it's best to cycle them. And so that brings me to cycling these herbs. You're like, that's so many. What if I just throw it all in a pot and make a big cup of tea and drink it? Don't do that. Do individual herbs for a few reasons. One is safety. These are all safe, simple herbs. Every one of them can be used daily, excluding the red clover, there's a word, because it's a blood thinner, so you don't want to like just keep taking it. So when you fill up a quart jar, these are filled with oil, so don't drink these. When you fill up a quart jar with your plant matter, you get about 4 cups of liquid, especially if you can press the plant matter to strain out the liquid that's in it. So, and if you drink a cup a day, this jar, a quart of plant infusions, of herbal infusions, would last you about 4 days. So for 4 days you drink nettle, a cup of nettle a day. And then the next 4 days you drink comfrey. And then 4 days after that you do 4 days of Oatstraw. You see, so you could really even do it on a calendar. It's really handy if you are still having cycles to line up the red raspberry and the red clover during your moon cycle. Those really help with cramping, excessive bleeding, or too little bleeding. It will just help regulate. And once again, I have a video on how to make safe, simple herbal infusions, and it's in the description section. I'll link right to it. And it's only like 10 minutes long, so don't worry. I know these videos are usually like an hour and a half or 2 hours, but this one's super simple, tells you how to do it. It's not intimidating at all. And then there's also going to be a link in the description, struggling there, for where you can buy bulk herbs. It's not an affiliated place. I just trust this place to have a quality herb. And you need bulk because you're going to be doing 1 ounce at a time. So you need to order like a ½ pound or so and start trying these out. But again, you're not going to feel like instant rejuvenation, you know, but as you take in these infusions and add them to like a healthy, varied diet, your health is going to start to build. And the nettle is great at rebuilding energy. And then, of course, I'd add in bone broth. I'd start making bone broth for myself. Even if you're a vegetarian, even if you're a vegan, look at it as more of like taking quote-unquote medicine versus then consuming something that's going to make you ill or that you're against. Plus, you can source organic bones, and then you're really doing the animal a service by not letting any of it go to waste since it's already been killed anyways. But if you're not vegan, bone broth, you know, just do it. Bone broth is amazing. It gives you amazing energy. I mean, you can take a couple cups of this bone broth, drink it down, and have more protein in your body than if you ate a steak. You're basically getting all the marrow out of the bone. You're just making a soup, any soup you like for the most part, that's kind of more liquidy, you know, like chicken soup or something like that. And I just want you to let it cook in a crock pot or the like for like 2 days. Basically, all that does is it pulls out all the nutrition from the bones into the broth. Oh yeah, I need a drink of water. You guys are always seeing me suggest Susan Weed's books. Well, that's because they're great. Not paid to tell you to buy these. Healing Wise is a super good book to jump in on taking control of your health with safe, simple herbs. Herbs that grow in your backyard, that grow basically everywhere. And it goes through and it tells you like here's about nettle. It'll tell you all about nettle, how to make infusions, gives you recipes and stuff too, you know. And I really like how she writes it. It's more of like storytelling. I mean, there's facts in here, but I mean, when she really starts talking about nettles, it's easier to get into it because we learn better from stories than like cold, hard facts on page. Most people do. You learn more compassionately, anyhow. You know, every plant has a, you know, an illustration in a section. You know, and it talks about making oils and infusions and salves and teas with basically all of these. So you can get this on Amazon used for like $1 plus shipping. But if you want to support the author, Susan Weed, I would go to ashtreepublishings.com and I'll have that link in the description. Said the right word. Yeah, because most of the time when you buy a book off of Amazon, almost none of the proceeds go to the author. Like none. I asked my mom about that. She's got 2 books published and exclusively sell through Amazon. They're like children's books and poetry and stuff. And she gets basically no royalties. She gets like half a cent from every sale, and they're selling them for like $20 a pop. You know, so it depends on, you know, sometimes we gotta save money, and I buy used books off of Amazon, but if I have a little extra, I'll go directly to the author's website, or send them a message being like, hey, where can I buy this so I can support you instead of this big corporation. So that's what I have to say about that. And of course, you could jump into I think my first episode, and it's a long one, it's like the longest one I've ever made, but you can jump into that episode, and I talk really too much on there, but I talk deeply about bone broth and infusions and optimum health all through for every situation. So you can probably definitely glean some more information from that if you didn't feel like you got enough here, which, hey, it happens. So let me calm myself down a minute. I get excited, and you know, I'm nervous to talk on these, and it's really creepy making eye contact with the eye of a camera. I put a stuffed animal up there before I started the video. That's probably why I had to restart the first two I started. I'm like, I'll make eye contact with this little pink, huge-eyed cat that my daughter has, and that'll make it easier. And I found it to be a touch creepier. So I'm just gonna bear with it. And if you don't see me making instant eye contact when I'm like looking over here talking, don't take it personal. The next question comes from a gal who, her husband can't quite quit smoking. And I get that. I smoked for a long time. Seems like a lifetime ago now, but I basically smoked from the time I was 9. I'm serious. I had a childhood that was, you know, I smoked full on from the time I was about 9, maybe 10, until I got pregnant with my son when I was 17. Full. And like the last 4 years there, I probably smoked, I don't know, it's hard to gauge if it was a pack or not, because I was like homeless most of the time, and we used top tobacco, you know, I rolled our own. I'd just say that I would go through a pouch in a couple of days. That stuff isn't exactly, and no filter, you know, so I smoked for a long time, and I get that it's hard to quit. But if I was down to just 1 or 2 cigarettes a day, and at that point I'm using it more for a calmative, like an emotional crutch, there's still addiction there. I would make myself a smoking blend with Mullein plant. And again, you can order that from the link that'll be in my description for bulk herbs. Mullein's going to do a couple great things. For one, it's going to start healing the damage done to our lungs. And for 2, it's a natural psychoactive. Not like you're going to be off your fucking rocker. You know, you're not going to be out of it, but it's really calming. It's a calming. It's kind of up there with tobacco as is. So I would, and I know he probably buys pre-rolled cigarettes, obviously, but maybe you could get one of those little cigarette machines that makes them. But if you, or even just, you know, where you can like roll out the tobacco out of a cigarette, you know, I used to do that and fill it full of weed. We've all done it. Probably most of us have done it. But you can roll it out like that, take it out, and then I want you to start blending in a little bit of Mullein, and then a little bit more, and a week later, and then a little bit more, and then eventually it's just Mullein. That way you're getting over the addiction itself, and you're appeasing your brain with something that is altering you, because that's the way a lot of addictions work. Our body really doesn't care how we're altered to an extent. It just wants to have that altering happen. And so you're kind of replacing one substance with another, except for Mullein's actually healing your lungs when you smoke it, and it's not addictive. But it does give you that calm. And now you're like, well, why wouldn't he just quit altogether? Well, if you do this, you're slowly weaning yourself off of the addiction factor, where you're craving, your body's like, take this, take this, take this. And then when you're okay with using full-on Mullein, you can start battling the hand-mouth habit. You know, that's a big part of it. It's not even just, what the hell do you do with your hands when you don't have a cigarette in them anymore? You know, it's such a habit. And so a lot of people fail quitting smoking for a lot of reasons, but 2 of the reasons are addiction and habit are both really hard to kick, and you start trying to take away both of those at the same time, you're going to lose your shit. Quite frankly, you're not going to be happy, and you're going to have like a lower success rate. So once you've dealt with the addiction factor and weaned yourself onto something different, then you can tackle the habit factor. They have these little fidget toys, and I'd ask my husband to see his when he broke his and he's waiting for a part to come in, but like, just go onto Etsy and Google a fidget toy. And they have like these cubes or these ones that you spin, like you hold it right here and it just like spins and you spin it with your fingers. There's ones that you can click and move. They're really for people who have like attention issues and OCD or just, need something to do with their hands. But they're also great for people who are quitting smoking and don't know what to do with their hands. So you could really look into those. You can pay anywhere from like $10 for one up to like, there's fancy ones for like $100, no joke. I think my husband's was in like the $30 range, and he's waiting for a replacement part, but he uses it a lot. And you can start healing lungs now, even while you're still using tobacco, and you can do that by making a Mullein infusion, which is where I talked about in the first part of this. But if you fast forwarded, I don't blame you, there's a link in my description to how to make herbal infusions. But the thing with Mullein is it's got those little fuzzy hairs all over it. If you're going to drink it, you need to make sure that when you strain out your infusion that you use a really tightly weaved cloth, like a bandana or something. Muslin and cheesecloth don't really cut it unless it's like triple layered on itself, because those hairs are irritating if we drink them. But Mullein is amazing for lung health. It just repairs, and it's going to help. It's going to suck, but you're going to start coughing as you quit, and it's going to really act to thin out the tar and then make it easier to cough up. That's why it's good for like bronchitis and stuff like that. So I would do that. Then if we start supporting our body while we're trying to get off of the addictive drug nicotine, the stress is less and the addictions, the cravings are less. And that would go back to, I would do specifically the Nettle infusion. You could use a tincture too for adrenal support, but the infusion would be better because obviously you don't get any nutrition out of a tincture. It just doesn't, you just get like the medicinal action, not the healing optimum nutrition, minerals and stuff. And that's one that tastes best like with a little bit of salt and cold. It's like a savory thing, so think of it like fish sauce or just whatever. You can even start cooking with it. Add nettle into your stocks, and for like soup or whatever. I add it into my fresh pasta, anything like that. And then if I needed something to really take the edge off of that craving, where you're like, if I don't get this, I'm gonna like flip the fuck out. As long as I wasn't on any drugs for mental health and haven't been on any in the past year or so, I would use Motherwort tincture. And again, it's a nervine, and that goes back to where about the only thing I can use is Oatstraw or milky oat tops. That it just overstimulates an area that's trying to heal, and it can throw you into withdrawal symptoms. And remember that those symptoms can happen even after you're off the pill, because it's your brain healing. But the Motherwort tincture is going to bring you down. Not like make you sad, but like when you're like, oh God, I need it, like it's going to like just be like, oh. And that's because your body's like, oh, thank God you gave me something that alters me, except for Motherwort's really calming, and it's like, that doesn't make it so you can't drive, just like you just kind of like chill out, it's like, I don't know, like waking up from a really great night's sleep and just feeling like you haven't thought about all the shit that's going wrong in your life yet. So it's good that way. So that is what I would do if I was down to just a couple cigarettes a day and just couldn't quite let it go because I used it as a calmative. Alright. I'm not doing a ton today because I have like 12 hours of work ahead of me for the shop update. And the kids get off school early every Friday. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it'll be like making and pouring and labeling and printing and listing and writing on top of. Quit screaming about that. You can't argue about air. Everybody can have air. I'm sorry, I washed more of her clothes than yours. You know, my kids aren't perfect. I love them, but they're at that age where they can argue about arguing. So the next question I got, well, I got two questions that are kind of the same, and I kind of addressed this in the last video, but I don't know, I'll give some more information here, because maybe that was the one that I didn't feel like I had done a ton with, so whatever, I'll answer it again. The first person asked about leaky gut syndrome, and the second person asked about IBS. They're kind of potato. I know you can be like, no, this one is this and this one is this, but just hear me out. They all kind of start from the same thing, and that's really poor gut health. You know, and both of these people have stress in their life. And I believe one gal has a new baby. And so that's stressful. I mean, I want to choke my kids, and they're halfway capable that they can like feed themselves, and I can be like, get in the car. You know, but when they're small and you just, you know, it takes so much energy. I know it does. So I'm kind of going to address both here. So I might go back and forth between two situations. So try to keep up. So with a leaky gut, this person has issues with cystic acne, which is a pretty common thing amongst women in general. And I did actually cover that one pretty extensively in either the first episode or the second episode. I talk about what I cover in the description, so you don't have to watch and wait and guess if it's going to be in that one or not, but I'll kind of cover it again. Cystic acne can come from a lot of things, but it is kind of hand in hand with leaky gut. And as far as what you could use on your skin that won't cause you to like flare up, I'm going to recommend tallow all the way. Tallow for your skin, not lard. Lard is from pork, period, from pigs. Tallow is from any red-meated animal. You know, beef, cows, deer, goats, bears, anything that has, well, red meat. When you cut it open, we technically would have tallow. You know, like on Fight Club, when he's making soap out of the women's asses, they have lipo sucked out of them, selling it back to him, and they're like, this is the best soap in the world, at least my skin's so soft. Well, you know, stigma aside, it really would. I mean, I don't know, because we eat really unhealthy, but the tallow in general is amazing for our skin. You know, you think, oh, well, I have a really greasy skin. Well, I don't care. Use tallow. It's going to replace the bad grease, and it's going to push all the bad grease out and, like, really heal your skin. It's essential fatty acids is what it is, which you can kind of get from plant oils, but it's not the same. Tallow is what our body craves. We make it, so when we put it on there, it's like, oh, yes, this is what I've been needing. But, of course, with the leaky gut syndrome, you kind of got to address that to help your skin, too. Like, tallow is not going to, like, fix your entire issue. But they had asked about cystic acne. But again, there's way more info on that, either the first or the second episode. This person with the leaky gut is taking herbal supplements to help themselves. Or supplements. They didn't really specify. But either way, stop it. I'm sorry. Herbs and pills are really, really dangerous for you. The quality control, the concentration, it's just, and we're trying to get away from pharmaceuticals here, you know? So like, when you put an herb ground up in a pill, you're trying to mimic pharmaceutical, and you're stepping into like the dangerous area of heroic healing, and really, like, it's enough to damage you and not enough to heal you, you know? And then a lot of people take vitamins. There are some vitamin supplements that are crucial if you're low on them and you need to build your reserves like right fucking now. Like like, oh my god, I have 0 vitamin D in my body. Well, you're going to take those massive pills, but they're going to be gel caps. But a majority of the vitamin supplements you get are in solid pill form, and you don't digest them. I don't care what they say, now easily digestible. My dad has been the district's facility manager for the city of where I'm from. Almost said where I'm from for like 40 years. And for 15 years of that, he was in charge of the water treatment area, you know, where we clean the sewage and get it all, the water ready and capable to go back into the river, which is a good thing. It helps aquifers. Don't be like, oh, it's gross. Every place does it. And so I had to go to work with my parents a lot. We didn't have money for babysitters, and like he would always take me and show me like the 3rd stage, like cycling stuff. Like, I know people are like, oh, it's an urban myth, blah blah blah. No, I've seen it. I have seen hundreds of little pills. You can see them. You can see them in the water. They float. They're buoyant, and they, you know, and it's really causing an issue with our water. Same with like hormonal birth controls, antidepressants. All this shit's in our water. But so I'm going to say a good 80% of the time when you swallow a solid pill form supplement, it's not doing you any good. You know, and a lot of those have horrible additives in them, heavy metals to compound them together, wheat. So many people are like, oh, I don't eat wheat. I'm like, well, is your pill gluten-free? It's probably not. So you're like, oh, but this is what I do to get health. Well, okay, I'm going to say to you, get off of the pills and go on to the herbal infusions where it's instantly readily available for your body. It'll make a huge difference. And, you know, the nettle is going to build energy, and that'll go for both of you. You know, one is just completely drained from a flare-up and just sick all the time, and that just happens with this crap. But if you start drinking this nettle infusion, you are really going to build your energy up. And I don't mean you drink like a cup or 2 a week. I mean like do the 4-day cycle. But if you really want to, it won't hurt you to do nettle for like a week straight or 2 weeks straight and start seeing the difference. And let it replace your coffee, for Christ's sakes, if you're drinking coffee. Coffee drains our adrenals, causes fatigue. It's addictive. We get in a horrible cycle if we can't function without it. That's addiction, people. It's a horrible, and you're not really, unless you're drinking, okay, let me calm down here a second. Coffee can be okay for your health if you are willing to drink straight black coffee. You're probably not doing that. You're adding sweeteners and creamers, and you're really kind of just drinking sugar. And then, unless you're buying green coffee beans in bulk and roasting them yourself and then making your coffee, you are ingesting all kinds of carbon issues, you know, from when they roast them, how they roast them. Some places have been caught using plastic in their fires to get that darker color. Pesticides, so it's such a mega industry that it's not about giving you quality, it's about getting it out there fast. But coffee is bad. Anybody who's dealing with anxiety or fatigue, stay away from those types of stimulants, including ginseng. Anything that gives you sudden energy is going to fuck your life up. You are going to go down, down, down. Oh, I have to take this down, down, down. That stuff leads to fatigue, depression. Even if neither of you are drinking coffee, somebody watching this is. And you're going to be grumpy and feel like you can't function for like the first month you're off of it, if you drink a lot of it. But like, I challenge you to switch that out with nettle infusion. Or just get on nettle infusion. Give yourself a month or 2 on nettle infusion, and then really be like, oh my god, I have energy to do these things. It's amazing. So that kind of addresses the energy for the gal with the leaky gut, and I'm guessing the gal with the IBS who has a brand new baby, is just as tired. I'm tired even thinking about it. Anyhow, so how about we start repairing our gut? Comfrey is a go-to for me. It repairs the mucous membrane of your gut and your upper and lower intestine. It's amazing for that. Plus, as a woman, you need more real calcium, and they don't call it nip bone for no reason. I mean, there have been cases where people have reversed osteoporosis using Comfrey, which is pretty impressive. for a little humble herb. Once again, make sure you're using domestic comfrey. Domestic means that it's long time ago in a faraway land in Russia, actually, most likely. A domestic version that had been growing in a garden forever was crossed with a wild version. And when they crossed, a dangerous protein, an alkaloid that does kidney damage, was eradicated. And so that species is safe, excluding the root, to take internally. And then the wild ones that you can go find out, especially down south and stuff, are not safe to use internally. But don't worry, if you order from the place I linked below, or almost any place that's a bulk place, they're not carrying wild comfrey. It's domestic because they have to grow it. So comfrey is really good at repairing the gut and the intestine and everything. But as far as the cystic acne goes, it's also amazing for any acne, really, at healing our skin from the inside out. It encourages new cell reproduction and all sorts of stuff. And then you could even do a comfrey wash on your face. Just make that infusion and use a cup of it every night on your face. And then, following the lines of repairing that mucous membrane. Like leaky gut, it is what it is. Leaky. So you need to really repair those linings. And mallow root would be amazing for that. Now you have to do a cold infusion, because if you do a warm one, it's going to be a big ball of snot. Because it's got so much mucus in it. Not mucus, it's just a mucosis herb. And so you make it like I talked about with the other infusions, except for you put your cup of root in there, and then you fill it to the top with cold water, and you let it sit for the same time the next day. And it'll still be slippery as you drink it, but it'll be drinkable. And I know that sounds gross or whatever, but that action that you get, it's just like a slick. It's going to go around your gut and down your intestine, and it's going to prevent all kinds of stuff from going in and out of your intestine walls and stuff like that. And then I would get going on, I would take a tablespoon or more daily of slippery elm powder. It's a tree, and it doesn't even taste that bad, really. I just mix it with a little bit of water, kind of earthy. And that does the same thing as the comfrey and the mallow root. It's an amazing healer. And a lot of people think of it as a laxative, but it's not a laxative. It's a regulator. If you are going too much, if you are shitting yourself uncontrollably from IBS or stress and all that stuff, slippery elm will slow your diarrhea down. If you have been backed up forever, it's been days since you've been able to take a shit, slippery elm is going to help you go gently. It's not going to evacuate your bowels. So it's a regulator, and that's great. In both of these instances, you need to regulate your gut. And so I would really put all of these allies together. And then I'd go back into the bone broth. I talked about it gets all that really healthy fat and the nutrition and all that. Well, for one, if you're having flare-ups, you need to digest easy things. Bone broth is amazing, right up there. If I couldn't eat right now, sometimes in the morning I'm oh, if I eat, I'm gonna puke. You're just not ready to eat. I'll drink infusion instead, and that way I know that my body can instantly digest this. It's not really having to work for it. It's just like if you're drinking water. But my body isn't continuing to fast and really need this stuff. And then the bone broth, it has so much instantly digestible protein. It's not hard in your gut. And those healthy fats are key in both situations. For IBS or leaky gut, it's going to grease your gut. And then you're like, oh, that sounds gross. I'm not talking about a big, greasy, drippy hamburger. Although, hamburger made at home that way, it could be good for you. This is good fats. And your body, you need fat. We are engineered to eat fat. I don't care what anybody says. We need fat to sustain health. And so bone broth is a really good way to get that in, as well as adding in grass-fed butter, grass-fed meats, ghees, any of that stuff. Ghee's a type of butter. Someone's like, what's a ghee? And then, this is like, we're repairing a lining, but note that these things aren't going to bring bacterial levels back. They're not going to replace what's been damaged from probably antibiotics you've taken at some point in your life, or the chlorine in your water, or the essential oils you're surrounded by. And I'll get to that bit in a second. So I would really start adding in truly fermented foods. Sauerkraut, pickles, carrots. If you can't buy it at a store, some places sell like the Bubby's pickles and stuff like that. It needs to say fermented, because most sauerkraut you buy in the store, it's not fermented, it's fake, it's made with vinegar. And that's not really, vinegar is good for you in other ways, but that's not going to help in this case. So you start adding in these fermented foods, but I want you to go slowly, because if you eat too much fermented foods at once, you get what's called die-off, which is where this good, amazing bacteria is like kicking the shit out of the bad bacteria in your body, and as it dies, it off-gasses, and you feel like shit, your muscles hurt, everything. And it just doesn't feel good, and you usually have to back off and start over again. So they'll be like, oh, fermented food. Be like, I bought a jar of fermented pickles. I'm going to eat half a pickle a day for a month. And then in a month from now, I will eat a whole pickle. Instead of being like, oh, I ate all those pickles in a day. Just go slow. Then you can get the same symptom from kombucha or water kefir or milk kefir. But I need to be clear about something. Those are not the same as eating fermented food. Google it. It's a yeast colony. It's not the same as it's a type of fermentation, but it doesn't really have very high probiotic content. I'd rather drink that than soda. Any day of the week, I prefer water kefir. But the ones you buy in the store, and you're like, oh, it says it has 10,000 or 10 billion live, probiotic cultures. That's because the company adds it to it, period. And now you're like, okay, well, why don't I just go buy a probiotic or prebiotic supplement? Because your gut kills almost all of that bacteria. It's not meant for it. You need the living stuff off of fermented foods. I guess those aren't really going to hurt you, but you're going to pay out the ass for them, and they're not really going to give you, you would have to take the whole box of pills, which I don't recommend doing, not safe, of probiotic supplements to equal one fermented carrot. So which one do you think really does more healing? Now we don't want to, you heard me huff because I'm like, we don't want to work on healing our gut if we're just going to be attacking it every day. And you're like, well, how am I attacking it every day? Well, odds are good that every day you are doing 2 things or more that contradict everything you're going to try to heal your gut. The one thing is, you use essential oils. And you shouldn't. They're bad. Somebody did ask me to do a question about essential oils. Where can they get them ethically? You can find companies that don't rape the environment as much, but at the end of the day, it literally takes hundreds of pounds to make just small ounces. So there's no real way to do that and respect these plant allies of ours. You're getting just this one volatile oil substance and you're throwing the rest of this plant away. That is heroic healing in a nutshell, where we're like, I don't want anything to do with you. You are the strongest element and I will take you into my body and be better. No, you won't. There's a link in my bio to my website, and the only blog post I've ever done is about the dangers of essential oils. So you can read that there. So when we are around essential oils, even smelling them destroys our gut health, our flora and our fauna. They're antibacterials, and we're like, oh, well, that's great. Well, no. It's the same as using antibacterial soap on your hands all the time, disinfectant wipes, taking antibiotics. It all kills our guts, and it does so drastically. Of course, there are some herbs like golden seal. I would never take golden seal. It's dangerous. It kills your gut bacteria more than most sulfa-based antibiotics. But here's a big drastic one. If I had to choose between taking sulfa-based antibiotics, like amoxicillin and stuff like that, or essential oils, I'm taking the antibiotics every time. Because at least with those, they've been around long enough that we can do damage with those. But we're not killing our liver, we're not disrupting our hormonal balance, we're not killing all of our gut bacteria deep down below, we're not making ourselves mute to scent, we're not fucking with our ability to taste. The list goes on, and definitely read the blog, because I'm getting off track here. Okay, so what I'm saying is, even if you're like, I don't use essential oils, I know that shit's poisonous, I bet you still are. I bet your dish soap is still scented. I bet it's still in your toothpaste. I bet it's in your body wash. I bet it's in the perfume you like. You're thinking to yourself, I don't take this oil and drop it in a carrier and put it on myself, so therefore I'm not using essential oils. But everything scented around us has volatile oil compounds in it. They're so bad for you. And if you don't believe me, and you don't believe any of the vast amount of scientific papers out there that talk about the danger of essential oils and damages they've done to people in a short time that they've been used widely like they are, do an experiment for me. Go out and buy unscented laundry soap for like people with allergies. That's what I buy. Unscented dish soap, unscented deodorant, unscented everything. Get rid of your cleaning wipes, get rid of your spray, replace it with like vinegar, and our plain unscented soap and water cleans just as well. Get all that stuff out of your life for a month. 1 month. Scented candles, potpourri, all that stuff. Potpourri you didn't make yourself, meaning most stuff you buy from the store or online or from shops have had essential oils added in it. Anything that brings scent into your home that's not from like cooking or nature, like a bouquet of flowers, all that stuff is fine. And then if you're into diffusing essential oils, then diffuse 1 single drop of oil and see how quickly that is overwhelming for you. Oh my gosh. Once your olfactory nerves repair, and you get this smell bombardment out of your life, you will be overwhelmed walking through the store when you smell the soap section. Fine, don't want to use essential oils and diffuser, don't have that. Go a month with everything unscented, and then walk through the laundry detergent section of your store. You think it's strong now. You're like, oh yeah, you smell it. Walk through there and see how fast you feel dizzy, your head hurts. Now, imagine, if you will, digesting those things. You would never digest those things, right? They'd kill us. We're like, oh my god, why would we ever eat that? And you're like, well, I don't use essential oils internally, so how is it affecting my gut health? And I think I talked about this in the last episode. But if you're in a house where people smoke cigarettes, you know that you are getting secondhand smoke and that it's bad for you, right? Well, you know that it can damage your lungs because the smoke is entering you internally. Just because we're not taking it internally does not mean that it does not enter our body. You are not taking a drag off of that cigarette, but you are smoking that cigarette. You may not be intentionally putting essential oils into your mouth, but when you breathe in that scent, it comes in your mouth and it goes into your bloodstream and the rest of your body. Period. You can't really argue that. Although I know I'll get plenty of messages that do. But in a nutshell, essential oils kill gut health. Alright? I'm like, I could keep going just rambling about them. But it's just, they're dangerous, and it will counteract everything you're doing to repair your gut. So the next thing that's killing your gut health is every time you take a drink of water. You're like, what? If you don't have a private well or spring water and you are getting water delivered from your town, you know, you're on a public water system, you have chlorine in your water. It is a national law. I don't care if they say, oh, there's no, yeah, I don't smell any chlorine. That is there. And chlorine damages our gut health just as much as essential oils do. You're like, well, what can I do? I can't afford to buy bottled water all the time. Well, don't, because that stuff usually has chlorine in it too, because it's just being bottled in a factory from public water. Get yourself an inline filter, or I really recommend a Berkey filter. They're expensive. I'm not paid to like suggest it. I use one myself. Well, they're not overly expensive for the fact that the filters last a very, very long time. I think it's like 50,000 gallons per, especially if you're not using like crazy dirty like river water, like I have to do sometimes. But it is safe. I mean, you can take these on camping trips. They even make, if you don't want to buy the big one, they even make these little sports bottles that have the element hanging down in here. I'm not kidding. You can take this bottle, dip it into the river, put it in there, and it's safe to drink. They got really popular and they came out during Katrina where, you know, it was all dead bodies and feces in the water. Well, these filters are capable of getting out all those microorganisms, and I mean, they've even had it to where like they can take radiation out of water. It's crazy. I'll put the link for that shop, their company, and you can read about it yourself, do your own research. And you're like, okay, well, great. I'll make sure that I'm not drinking chlorine anymore and I'll feel better. All right. But what about when you bathe your entire body in chlorine? What about when the biggest organ, the most absorbing organ on your body, your skin, drinks in chlorine? What about when that steamy shower, you are literally chlorine gassing yourself? Anybody who's ever lived off of well water that didn't have to be treated for sulfur, which they use chlorine to do, or spring water for an extended amount of time, and then had to go take a shower at like someone's house in town, or, you know, ran warm water for dishes, anything like that, ran a dishwasher, can tell you the chlorine smell coming out of your tap is overwhelming. It burns eyes. We moved down to the base of the mountain recently. Some of you might remember that from my Instagram. And we're on a town well. There's maybe like 40 people in this town, but it's this big black water tower. And it's from a good water source, except for they had to put chlorine in it. And I'm not kidding you. The second we turned on that hot water, like we like gassed ourselves, and so we had to go through and put inline filters and stuff. But you become sensitive to smell, or desensitized to smell, I should say, where you're so used to chlorine that you don't smell it anymore. And this was a big thing for me growing up, because remember I talked about what my dad did for a living. Well, a part of that, once he moved out of the water treatment, he was responsible. Well, he's responsible for all the buildings all over town. Did way too much until he made more departments, and so he didn't kill himself from working too hard. But this is a bigger town, not where I'm living. But we had this really, really big aquatic center, and it was always just a pool, you know. And he was in charge of maintaining chlorine levels in these pools. And, you know, that man has no smell of chlorine at all. He has to have, well, he wears masks and stuff now, but you know, back in the 80s and stuff, they didn't do that stuff. Now he has to have this special sensor that tells him when the chlorine gas levels are too high in the room, because he can't smell it. And he doesn't do that for his work anymore. Well, he's like up here now, and all these people do stuff under him, you know what I mean? And they have better systems to pull out the gas and stuff. But anyhow, when he would come home from work, we could smell it on him. It was so strong. So when you're in that shower taking a chlorine bath, you don't smell it. You don't smell it that chlorine is heat activated, and it's always there if it's cold too. But that gas evaporates in the heat, and you breathe it in, and it's just killing your gut health. Hey, it's killing your vaginal health too. If you have constant yeast infections, BV, bladder infections, you're killing away the good bacteria, and you're probably using soap, which messes up your pH. So you're like, well, what can I do about that? Well, it's really cool. Berkey sells, and there's other places, so like I said, I don't get money to mention these guys. Berkey sells an inline filter specifically for showers, and they're actually really cheap because it doesn't turn the water potable. It turns the chlorine into another inert chemical. The name escapes me, but the link will be in the description below, and you can read about it yourself. Where, like, you can't drink that water, but you can bathe in it. Like, it probably would kill you to drink it, but, you know, and how often are you really drinking out of your shower anyways? Now, I know if you have, like, little ones in the bath, you know, you might look into a filter that's different. Brita or something probably makes one. But getting chlorine out of your diet is essential, you know, and with those filters, you might as well remove the fluoride that's probably coming out of your water, making your brain soft. Okay. So essential oil and chlorine rant over. The next thing that's killing your gut is refined sugar. I don't know that I really need to go into deep detail on that. Sugar is bad for you. It internally, when it's from refined sugar. If you do have to eat sugar, stick with fruits that aren't crazy overripe, and like organic cane sugar or honey. I use raw honey. I'm currently on a no sugar allowed diet because I may have ate an entire box of lemon cookies, just one cookie at a time, and threw myself into said Benzo withdrawal wave. So that brings me to the next thing. We as healers, and I bring this up because both of these gals are healers, we fucking neglect ourselves so deeply. We push ourselves to help others, and we're like, I don't really need to take care of myself. I have to do this first. I have to do this. And then we add that on top of our kids, family, own personal shit. And before we know it, we can't get out of bed or leave the toilet. Or, you know, our body's like, fine, you want to play this game? I'm going to fuck your shit up, and you're going to lay down for a month or two. You know, and you're going to get behind, and finances will fall, and you're like, oh my god, that's so stressful. None of that has to happen if we could take our own goddamn advice and not push ourselves to do every little thing. Stress is key in both of these issues. Irritable bowel syndrome and leaky gut go hand in hand with chronic stress. You know, and you're like, well, there's nothing I can do. I have to do these things. I get that, believe me. I mean, I live with chronic anxiety from PTSD and such, and I get that. I can't just check out completely. But I also get that we as healers, and as women in our society in general, have been conditioned to say yes. Yes, we will come to your birthday party. Yes, you can come over and hang out. Yes, I will volunteer at the school. Yes, I will bake 200 cookies for your event. Yes, I will have this conversation with you. Yes, we can have sex. You know, yes, I'll go on a road trip. Ask yourself, fucking honestly here. Now remember, the only person you're lying to in this situation is yourself, so there's no real need to. Make a list of all the things you've done maybe in the past couple months for other people. You know, and ask yourself, how many of those times did you really want to say no? You know, like, honestly, you know, and I'm coming from this from a personal level, my anxiety levels are nuts. On top of dealing, a lot of that over the past couple of years has been getting off of benzodiazepines. And I hit this level where, like, I'm like, if I don't do this stuff, people are going to be disappointed in me. They're going to think I'm shitty. This is my family. I have to be involved deeply. You know, like external family factors, or like I have to. And I just said, fuck it. I don't have to. No, I don't want to come to dinner because I feel like my skin is burning off of me. That's to do with benzo stuff. Or, you know, no, I don't want to leave the house today. I'm not even putting on a fucking bra. No, I don't want to go and be involved in this school function. No, I'm sorry, I can't help you deal with your health ailment right now. No, I don't want to have sex. Maybe for the next couple weeks. You know, no, I don't want to visit right now. No, I don't need you to come over. Now, I'm not promoting being agoraphobic. I'm saying, how often are you pushing yourself to say yes? And you might have to dig pretty deep to be honest with yourself about that. Or how often are you just doing this stuff, going through the motions? How often are you just agreeing because it's just what you do? It just, you have to. You're conditioned. This is what you do. This is life. It doesn't have to be. So, if you can start cutting tremendous amounts of stress out of your life, you would feel amazing, right? And you think, boy, that would take like a complete life change. Like, we need to fucking move out and cut life off and completely get rid of our, profession and quit our job. And no, you don't have to do that. You just have to start saying no more. And when you say no, you're not going to be hollow. You're going to feel relaxed. You're going to feel your shoulders go down. You're going to be like, I don't have to do that. I am going to lay here. And then all of a sudden, you find time for self. And then all of a sudden, you find time to heal. And then all of a sudden, you're healed, are healing, are further down the road. And you say, I could do a little bit more, but here's the difference. It's on your terms. Could you imagine wanting to do all these things that make you drained? Could you imagine that these things now bring you joy? Or maybe those things never brought you joy, and you've opened yourself up to a situation to explore new things. That's what happened for me. I've always been into herbs my entire life. It's part of my culture. It's part of growing up. But I didn't do this for a living prior to a year ago. I mean, I always used it, and it got me through life, and it supported me in a ton of ways, but, let's be frank here, for years, years, I'm older than I look, I was deeply involved in the medical marijuana industry in California, Oregon, and Washington when it became legal there. And I was helping all these people, and I was growing thousands of pounds of marijuana. I know, we were like, oh, sure she was. No, I was. Of course, it's not all by myself, but 3 of the operations I owned and ran completely by myself. And it fucking killed me. I mean, I don't want to go off on how people use marijuana as a band-aid, and that while it does have medicinal purposes, it's really not helping you as much as you think it is. It's masking a symptom, and anyhow. But I dealt with hundreds of people that used it for that reason, that they weren't really willing to use any other herb, They didn't want to hear about how if they built nutrition with this herb, it could make them feel better, and then they'd have to use marijuana less. And it got to the point where I literally puked blood from a peptic ulcer. And I just started saying, no, I can't do that for you. No, I can't take you on as a patient. No, I'm not driving 15 hours because something went wrong. No. I got to the point where I don't even smoke herb. I use CBD, but I use it from hemp, so there's no THC in it to alter me. The last 5 years that I worked in that industry, I didn't even touch it. It's become a trauma plant for me. It's work, But I found myself, as I said no to these people who weren't willing to listen to anything else, to consider adding in supplemental herbs or whatever, I found myself a little freer. I found myself a little broker too. At that point in time, the industry was lucrative. I'm not going to lie, I made a lot of money. I used to not be so poor, but then again, I always kind of was, and I didn't see my children very much, or I did, but I wasn't there. I was so stressed out all the time. And this isn't just to do with the marijuana industry, it's to do with a job. And I know we can't just check out of a job, but this type of job in general had me saying yes a lot to outside factors that didn't have anything to do with if I was going to get a paycheck or not. And as I said no, I drifted away from this thing that was killing me. And I said no more, and I drifted closer to myself, and my stress levels went down, and things started to come into focus. And it's a big, long story, so I won't go any further deeper into it, like where it led to and stuff. But now I'm here, and I have a long fucking way to go. I have a lot of healing to do. From trauma that was way worse than, working at a high stress job and people and culture. But it was amazing at how much of my health I recovered as soon as I started to say no. And sorry, someone's driving by and barking or honking a ton, making the dogs bark. Anyhow, these two people that I'm talking to in general, I know that they're both healers, and it's hard to say, like, are you healing in a way that is helping you? Are you pushing yourself because this is the industry that you've pushed yourself into, and that you have a certain image or a certain way to maintain? Are you maybe keeping up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term? Do you feel like this is what you absolutely have to do? Is what you're doing bringing you joy or making you break down on a daily basis? You know, and I caught myself in that same cycle with my shop here. I found myself like being stressed out about it. Oh, did I post to Instagram soon enough? Oh, fuck. Now that Instagram has this algorithm, I'm only getting so many likes and so many views, and only this many people followed me. And so I took off the business profile. Some of you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but on Instagram, if you're a business, if you're a really big page and you sell stuff, you have like a link in there, you can change to a business profile. And they show me how many of you are following me. I know that like 90% of my followers are women. I know that you mostly live in New York or wherever. I know that you're on between these hours and these hours, and it was fucking with my mind. Like, I became not so much obsessed, but I found myself like stressing out those things and then going off about it to my husband, and it just became what I left behind. And so I washed my hands of it. I don't care if I get 200 likes, which sounds like a lot, but here I am saying the same thing. Not for how many people I have. I don't care how many people have followed me. I don't care if you're a male or a woman, you know, man or a woman. I don't care about any of that stuff. So why am I following this? And I got sucked back into it, and I'm like, oh, you know, I have to fit this stereotype of an herbalist or they're not going to be interested. Everything I say has to do with herbalism or they're going to walk away. And I've had people tell me that. They're like, well, you know, they say like passive aggressively. And if I say something that's nothing to do with herbals, something emotion I'm feeling or dealing with, they're like, well, I like when you post about herbals. I really appreciate those posts. Well, fuck you. I'm a human. I'm not here to cater to anything like that. I just have to be myself when I am myself. And I know that you're like, whoa, this is way left field for talking about IBS and gut health. But you hear all that stress I let out and everything went, what do you think that does inside of us? You know, like that kills our body and primarily our gut. So I backed away, even though you're like, well, you're there every day. But I backed away from a lot of stuff, and I let go of a lot of stuff, and I kind of just went back into like my healing plant allies, and like, you know, I started talking about tallow on here freely, you know, which gets me all kinds of hate mail from people who are vegan for, you know, whatever. Some vegans are really, you know, but not all. So I'm just making sure that you are being honest with yourself about your stress levels, how often you're saying yes when you don't want to, and making sure that you're in something because you want to be in it, you know? Okay. A few last things. You're like, fuck, that was me going off a little bit. So for the woman who just had a baby, I'm just going to go right back into it. When I was pregnant with my daughter, and it's been almost, 11 years now, that's crazy. Out of the blue, I became gluten sensitive. And if you can imagine how much that sucked, because 11 years ago, there was no such thing as a gluten-free aisle. Not even in Northern California. And I went there a lot. Nothing. I made that child off of wild game meat, vegetables, and cheese. It was the hungriest pregnancy of my life. She was still over 9 pounds, but I became sensitive to gluten. Out of the blue for no reason. And then about a year afterwards, I could start adding in spelt. And now I can eat all the gluten I want as long as it's not processed white bread from the store. You know what I mean? As long as I'm making it myself for the most part, or it's a high quality, wheat, I can eat it just fine. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, our digestive tract changes from the time we get knocked up until about a year after we give birth. And sometimes it just never goes back. So I think your babe is like 6 months old, 4 or 6 months old. And if this isn't the same person I think it is, I'm sounding creepy that I know about your baby. I'm pretty sure this is like an Instagram, Facebook friend that submitted the question. But if it's not, sorry for being creepy. But your body really takes time to readjust. Like your intestines, your stomach literally moved to a different place, and what your body wanted and needed and craved and what you ate was entirely different. It might not seem like it was, but it probably was. So be gentle with yourself. You can do all these things, but just like give yourself time for that to go back to normal. And then the gal with the leaky gut is following a strict paleo diet with an autoimmune protocol. But from what I'm gathering, it's not really helping. So, is it worth it? Like, when we eat these rigid diets, and now I know that, you know, if we're allergic to specific things, like, factually know that we're not allergic. Like, gluten is a perfect example. I know we know our bodies best, but so few of the people who take themselves off of gluten are actually having a reaction to gluten itself. It's more likely the pesticides, the quality of other factors in our life. And we just say, oh, well, everybody else is allergic to gluten, I'm allergic to gluten too. And then you kind of end up on this really restricted diet. I mean, what happens is, I think I talked about this in the last episode, we get on these really strict diets, which is super heroic healing. And we say, I can only eat this stuff, this way, this day, this time, and this way I make it. And you're like, if I eat anything else, I get sick, and that's how I know it's helping my body. And so many of you are hating me right now. But here's the deal. No shit. No shit. If you only eat a specific amount of things for a specific amount of time, and you eat anything else off of your diet, it's going to fuck your world up. Because your body's not used to it. Like those of you who have dogs, right? You feed that dog the same type of dog food all the time, right? Assuming you're not like a raw feeder. Let's just assume you're feeding your dog this one really good brand of dog food. But you're like, huh, this brand of dog food is even better. You know, no wheat, no whatever. So I'm going to switch him to it. What do you think would happen to that dog? No, what will happen if you don't slowly ease that dog into a different food? It's going to shit itself violently for about a week while it adjusts to this new food because it hasn't eaten anything besides this food. And now I know that we're not dogs and we're not eating the same type of kibble, and then a paleo diet, a vegan diet, anything diet has variations in recipes and stuff, but does it really? Like, you're just cooking these same things in different ways, you know? And now, at least with paleo, if I had to choose a diet, there's lots of vegetables and then you can eat meat, but I would say that it's more important for your body to have diversity. Omnivore, the definition of omnivore, which is what humans are, we're not herbivores, we're not carnivores, we're omnivores, we need both. But actually, I want you to Google the definition of omnivore. Lightly put, it is an opportunistic eater. Our ancestors did not live a paleo diet. And there's so much scientific facts behind that it's fucking mind-blowing. To say that humans never ate wheat is ridiculous. Or how about this one? This one cracks me up. Oh, our ancestors never ate corn. What? That's funny, because Native Americans, if you're Native American, but they produced more corn on an agricultural scale than all of Europe did until the 1800s. Like, I'm talking huge fields, and it was a main part of their diet. You go down to the southern tribes, are you kidding me? They live off of blue corn, and rice, and wild wheat is a thing. So I'm not saying that this diet can't help people, but if it's not helping you, you have to ask at some point in time, is it hurting me? You know, is me not having a varied diet of healthy choices that are outside of the strict paleo guidelines actually making things worse? And I bring that up because I'm going to tell you to add in, if you're not allergic to dairy, if you're not factually allergic to dairy, I'm going to ask you to add in a cup or more of plain yogurt a day to your diet. And you're like, damn, woman, you could have just said, add some plain yogurt to your diet if you think you can handle it. But I kind of want to get that out there because I see a lot of people do damage to their bodies following these really strict guidelines. And that really falls into the heroic healing tradition. And that book I talked about from Susan Weed, Healing Wise, goes deeply into the difference between the scientific healing tradition, the heroic healing tradition, and the wise woman healing tradition. And I follow the wise woman tradition, where like everything healthy in moderation is good for you. You know, I want you to eat healthy animal fats. I want you to have, if you're not genuinely allergic, that big piece of fluffy homemade bread slathered in butter. And I want you to add some fucking strawberry jelly to it. It makes you feel good. And especially if you made the strawberry jelly yourself. Or I want you to enjoy the sweetest ear of corn you've ever had. You know, or I want you to have that really medium rare or whatever, you know, steak. And I don't want you to feel guilty about it. You know, and now I don't want you to... Any diet can be taken to the extreme. Doesn't matter if it's paleo or anything else. And when we go to extremes like that, we end up kind of like hurting our body. You know, like I follow a lot of paleo recipes, and I add wheat to them. You know, or like right now, while I'm eating healthy meat, I find that like I was kind of maybe eating too much. And I feel kind of gross, so I've like backed off to like meat like once every other day, you know. And then like in the summertime, I might like just want to binge on it. You really need to listen to your body. And I know we're like, well, I felt sick, so this is why I did this. But when we treat ourselves like that, like where we think that, like, okay, you can do an elimination diet clearly, and you know your body best, but like you found this one thing that helped a little bit. And that was great. But then your mind told you that, well, since this is helping, everything else is hurting. You know? But what if it was the uptick of vegetables in your diet that made you feel better? What if it was the uptick of healthy animal fats in your diet that made you feel better? You know, like, what if it wasn't all this other stuff that was hurting you? What if when you started following this really strict diet, it was what you added in that started helping you? You know? And again, these are just my opinions. You know your body best. You know, this is just me ranting at a camera. Okay. So I think I covered a lot of stuff there and ate up a lot of time. My goodness. So, let's see. This next one is kind of challenging. It wasn't really about, like they're asking about lupus and fibro and chronic pain without really asking about it. Like they ask about it, but it, you know, and I feel for this person, I really do. This person is in a crippling amount of pain all the time. But they're on a shit ton of medication to manage it, including benzodiazepines. So I'm kind of going to touch on this stuff a little bit. I know a lot of people have been asking me to do a full-on episode about benzos. I plan on doing that when I feel a little bit more emotionally stable about it. By that I mean like some days I'm strong enough to talk about it openly. Some days if I talk about it, it fucking throws my mind for a loop. And I get, my ears flare red from nerve damage in my brain, and it burns, and I get anxiety, and I can't talk about it. Sometimes, not talking about something isn't really denial in the way as like I just need to heal more from this before I can really jump into it. And then I just don't listen to my own advice, and I'll probably do it anyways, but I'll talk about it on here just a little bit. This gal, I had mentioned her to use pure hemp-based CBD oil from Indoka.com. Once again, they don't pay me to say it. I like that company. They were under the impression they've got parts of their lungs removed. I think they were under the impression that they have to smoke this on paper. No, this CBD oil made from hemp just goes under your tongue or in a little bit of water. There's no smoking involved. So like I really suggest that you start getting on CBD oil. I would. And the thing about CBD oil is, especially when it has no THC in it, you aren't going to feel it right away because it's not going to get you high. Although personally for me it calms me really well. I use it for anxiety a lot. But you need to build the levels up in your body. So you need to be taking this on a regular basis. They also sell pills. I know I said not to take herbal supplements. This is about one thing that in pills. This is about one thing I would feel comfortable in because it's pure CBD crystal in the pill. There's not really like a plant alternative. I mean, you can eat a hemp plant, you know, but it's not quite the same thing. So do know those are not meant to be smoked. What I suggested to you, I think, in a private DM over Instagram or the like. But that website will be linked under here. That stuff gave me my life back with benzos. It really helped me function through all the fucking horrendous withdrawal syndromes. I feel like I'm cussing more today, but is what it is. So that gets back to like I said, this is a challenging one. Okay, so the issue is, how long have you been on benzodiazepines to manage pain? Have you found that your pain is getting worse? And I want to be clear about something. These benzos are not actually taking away pain from you. They're making you fucking apathetical about it. They're making you not care about the pain you're feeling, which you're like, I care deeply about the pain I'm feeling. You know, you can barely function during the day. And it's hard to say this to somebody, but these doctors are giving you benzos to make you more compliant in society. I mean, like, in the sense that if you don't feel this pain or care as much, you won't go at them as much to fix the pain. You see what I'm getting at there? And now I know that you have issues with, like, you're going through like impaired brain function. And if you're watching any of my videos, you see me not be able to get words out. And that is very mild. That is me being recovering or whatever off of benzos for the past 6 months and my brain slowly healing. And believe it or not, there was a point in time where I could not count to 8. Literally. Actually, this is a good thing to bring up. I had a discussion on Instagram about my damaged benzo brain, and a gal who I think is watching right now, because I addressed her question in the last one, talked about she doesn't see the benzo damage because I'm so articulated, you know. Well, when I'm on Instagram, I can take time and I write out really a lot, and then I have to like go through it. Sometimes those posts take me like an hour or two of putting the phone down. My hands go numb from the benzo damage, and it's kind of easier to hide it there, you know what I mean? And it's real. You know, I like to call myself a mentally disabled goldfish at times, because like I just don't, you know, I've only got a 2-second memory as is, and then I forget what I was forgetting about, or I got off of benzos using liquid titration. You cannot, I stress this so strongly, you cannot just stop taking benzos. I don't give a fuck how tough you think you are. You're like, oh, I can quit anything, don't tell me, I'm different. No, you're not. You are not different. Your brain is chemically altered. It takes time. It took me 2 years to safely and slowly, I guess it was slowly, so I don't know, I did the finger quotes, get off of benzos. And it took me 2 years because I was on it for 10 years. But it still takes a long time, and you do microscopic cut downs once a week or so, what works for you, using liquid titration, which is where I pull up, basically, I'm crushing up a pill, I'm putting in this specific amount of applesauce in my case. I'm pulling out with a syringe without the needle on it, you know, so you can pull out a liquid. And then I'm barely taking out down to a specific amount. Like, and then, you know, once every couple weeks I take out a little less, and I take a little less each time. And then you're literally cutting your dose by micro amounts. And I needed to count to 8 to pull out, you know, I needed to count out 8 suctions of applesauce that I was going to mix into, you know, it's like a math thing. And I was just trying to count to 8, you know, where you're like trying to count how many scoops of flour or whatever, and you're like, okay, 1, 2, you don't want to forget, you're like, fuck, how many was there? I never made it past 3 for like an hour and a half. And when my husband found me, I was like in a full breakdown. I couldn't count to 8. I could not count to 8. So, I want you to not feel like there's something wrong with you that in regards, like you don't have these mental facilities anymore. Faculty, is that the right word? I don't know. You are in chronic pain on top of benzo use. Your mind is going to be mush, period. And the doctors are oblivious to benzos. For one, they think they're not addictive, and for two, they'll tell you you can come off of them within a week. Well, that's American doctors. I want you to look into the Ashton's manual. Anybody who's watching who is thinking about getting off of benzodiazepines or like has just started them or always considering them, link is in the description. And I want you to read what this is doing to your body, and I want you to understand that you can come off of this stuff and survive, but it's a really long, hard battle. I'm going to link a group in the description too, that once you're ready and you feel like you want to try getting off, you can join this group. They are a very private group on Facebook. They will ask you why you want to join. Be honest with them that you're wanting to get off of benzos and what type you're on, whether it's Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, lithium. It just goes and goes and goes. Actually, I don't think lithium is one, but lorazepam. There's about 200 benzodiazepine. Only about 10 of them are given for anxiety, but the rest of them, they're out there. It's a pandemic drug. People are like, oh, heroin. I wish that I was coming off of heroin. I mean, I don't want to belittle people's struggles getting off of heroin, but I would trade puking and shitting for a week and then just dealing with having to fight the urge to use it again in a fucking heartbeat. Like, I'm talking, this is hell, and I don't want to scare people. Getting off of benzos is going to feel like you are dying for a long time. And even once you're off of them, it's going to keep feeling like that. I look all confident, I talk on Instagram a lot, and I look like I'm holding my shit together, but really, I'm at the edge every single day, where, like, I'm terrified I'll end up in a mental institute. You know? Or the like, or I violently shit myself, or my ears go, sometimes I'm like, hun, you know, my husband, I'm like, my ears are turning red, aren't they? Because they fucking burn, like they're on fire, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if I go to a doctor, and they talk about this in the group a lot, if people who are on benzos for a long time, even on a short amount of time, there's some people that have only taken it twice and are damaged for the rest of their lives. That's really sad situations there. But while I'm on benzos, if I'm in protracted withdrawal, and I'll get to that in a second, or if I'm getting off of benzos, the symptoms that come along with withdrawal are like a fucking rainbow. Are more than a rainbow. They're never ending. Everybody has different symptoms. And it's mind-numbing. But if I went to the doctor every time I had a symptom, I would be diagnosed with something like fibromyalgia, when all of my muscles hurt constantly, or lupus. Or there was 2 weeks where I literally could not stand up. It was vertigo. I would have been diagnosed with vertigo. Or how about when my hands cramped up? And I couldn't move them. I couldn't do any of my beadwork. I couldn't do anything. I actually started carving crochet hooks. And if some of you are here from my old, my personal account now, you can kind of dig through and see those hooks that I used to make. And they look great. But that's because the only thing I could do was hold a stick and a sharp knife. And if I went there, they would have said I had MS. Or, you know, or when there was like a 3-month period. Now, I know this is scary, but this is my reality, and it's different for everybody. But once again, you'll not be tough enough to do this and not get any of these issues. It just will be different for you. I couldn't leave the house. I was full-blown agoraphobic. My anxiety was out of control. I literally was terrified of everything. And anxiety for no reason. You see, I'm getting myself worked up talking about it. But if I would have went to the doctor for any of those things, I would have been diagnosed with something. I would have been stuck in a mental institute. And for me, you know, the group's golden rule is, you know, once you're off or starting to taper, if these symptoms last for more than a month, then you can go to a doctor. But so many people there, it's a hard group to be in because we talk about what we're going through, and it can be a trigger. Like, I am on Facebook a little bit, but I have the notifications turned off, so I don't see it in my feed because for me it's a trigger to read about what they're going through. But for a long time it wasn't, and it helped me to be like, to ask questions. Is this part of withdrawal? What's going on here? Fuck, you know. So I'm bringing all this up because there's a thing called protracted withdrawal. And you're like, well, I'm not coming off of my medicine, so I don't have to worry about any of these withdrawal symptoms. I'm just going to stay on it. Well, honey, that's not going to happen. Protracted withdrawal can happen two ways. It's going to happen one or two ways. You've been taking this medication. Could be only 6 months, could be 10 years. And all of a sudden, you start feeling all these weird things. You're sick all the time. Your body hurts constantly. And now there are other factors here. I'm not saying that like your own issues are like getting rid of benzos isn't going to solve everything in your life, but it might be adding to a lot of your suffering. So protracted withdrawal is when you go into tolerance. Tolerance being no matter how much you take of this pill, your body wants more. And it doesn't matter if you say, well, I'll bump up a milligram or half a milligram. In a week, you're going to go through it again. You have hit a plateau level, not you in general, but with what protracted withdrawal is. You hit a plateau level where it doesn't matter how much you take. Don't try taking a whole bottle. I'm about to say, you could take a whole bottle, which don't, you'll kill yourself. It wouldn't matter. You'd still go into withdrawal if you lived it, through it. You know, it wouldn't matter. And you're like, fuck, that's terrifying. And it is. So it really doesn't matter if you're not ready to get off of it. I mean, I get that, and we're all at different places in our life, and we're like, well, it's helping us, what we think it is. It's not. Compared to what you're going to go through down the road getting off of it. But the thing is, you're going through it whether you like it or not. And the second type of protracted withdrawal, you're like, well, how isn't it the same thing? Well, if you think you're a badass and can just stop taking benzodiazepines, you will go into protracted withdrawal. And you're like, no shit, I'll go into withdrawal because I stopped taking them, but that'll be fine. No. Here's the deal. If you go off too quickly, your GABA receptors freak the fuck out, for lack of a better word. And you end up never coming out of these withdrawal symptoms. You know, like right now, I feel like shits most of the time, but hear me out. I feel amazing compared to what I did 2 years ago coming off of it, compared to when I couldn't get off the couch and I couldn't move my hands and I couldn't do anything, you know. But if you just jump off cold turkey, you will be stuck in that hell with protracted withdrawal. You will be in protracted withdrawal the rest of your life. And there are people that are dealing with that in that group. There are people who are learning how to talk again, how to walk again. There are people that make me, like, I have the deepest sympathy for them. But they also help me feel very, very grateful for how easy it has been for me to get off. Their struggles don't make mine any less. But, you know, I know that if I would have gone cold turkey, I probably would have been there. So do not jump off cold turkey. And I know this was about the pain, but it's hard to really address those issues if we don't know if it's the benzos causing it, you know, all of it. Now, as far as they asked if CBD oil has any reactions to anything, none that I know of, none that I've ever read about. It's pretty inert. It's not a highly reactive herbal. So you can take that right along any other medication. It's a great anti-inflammatory. Now, they asked if a CBD salve externally is really going to help. Now I'm going to make a few people be like, oh, whatever. A pure CBD salve sold to you is for the sake of money. It's profit. Okay, now let me back up a second. CBD is helpful. It's great at anti-inflammatory. But just like marijuana, it's not going to solve all of your problems. It's not some wonder drug. It is a good plant ally. It is an ally that should be joined with other herbals. You can get relief from a CBD salve. I've used them myself before, you know, if I didn't have mine on hand or whatever. But it's about, like, okay, in my pain salves that many of you are familiar with, they go like crazy. People are like, these are amazing, the CBD salves saved my life. And I want you to hear this. The least important thing in my salve that's bringing you relief is the CBD. And you're like, oh my God, you know, like I'm tanking my sales right now. But what if I told you the only thing CBD does for pain, for the most part, is reduce inflammation? So when you scurry out and buy this pain salve, doing air quotes today a lot, that is pure CBD added to, you know, wax. That's what it is. That's what a salve is. It's just wax and oil added together. You're kind of just buying into the hype of CBD oil. All of my pain salves have been strained already and been made for the shop update. So I was going to show you a thing. But I'll show you this one. You know, like okay, this is my cramp salve. But let's pretend this is my pain salve. It would be filled up, and it's got a lot of similar herbs in it, actually. There's no CBD in this, but we're going to pretend there is. Look at all these herbs packed into this oil. These have been sitting in this one for about 3 months now because I have a cycle, you know, of infusion, because I don't use essential oils. I use pure whole plant medicine. There's all kinds of herbs in this that help our pain. And then we're pretending this is my CBD salve, and then I add in CBD to this because it is an amazing complementary herb. Now imagine, if you will, if this jar was just filled with oil, whatever carrier oil you're going to use to make your salve. Let's pretend it's, I don't know, sunflower oil. If this was just a jar of sunflower oil, nothing else in it, and I have my CBD crystals, I use crystals from Hemp, and I add that in here, which one do you think is more effective? Do you think it's the salve that's full of other traditional pain-helping herbs, or the one that has CBD in it so I can charge you a shit ton of money? And I know that people are like, oh, you know, because there are a lot of other people who sell CBD salves, and I'm not saying that they're not putting other herbals in it, and a lot of them use essential oils. But I don't want you to buy just CBD oil salve. I mean, it can help you, but externally, it doesn't help as much if you take one that's meant for internal use, like from Indopa.com. So they asked if my salve would really help because they've gotten like just a little bit of help from CBD in the past, used externally, but not very much. I'm telling you right now, you can read through my reviews, and this isn't even a sales pitch. You can find salve from somewhere else. I just want you to make sure that they're using whole plant medicine and they're letting it infuse for a long time, and they're not just selling you on the fact that it says CBD. All right? But I really feel like my pain salve that I sell, which is now called hemp oil pain relief salve, not CBD salve, federal guideline stuff, would bring you some relief. It's not going to cure you, but it might help you feel a little less pain. And it's safe to use every day, and I don't charge a ton of money for a 3-ounce tin. I could show you the size of the tin. This is actually my icy hot one. But they all come in this tin. A lot of you are familiar with it. It's 3 ounces. It's filled. See, it's not some little tiny tin. I'm going to charge $18 for that, and shipping is free in the US. So, you know, most CBD salves, we charge you a ton for half that amount just because they are selling you the name of CBD, you know? So, definitely check out the Ashton's manual if you're thinking about getting off of benzos. Sometimes I know, like, when I started this journey of getting off of benzos, I sure the fuck couldn't read that manual. I just couldn't. It's actually, it's pretty reader friendly. It's not super technical, but there's just so much, and reading is hard when you're on benzos. It's hard to focus, you know? Like, I'm the type of person where, like, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I can read this book. I'm reading. For like 3 chapters and not remember a word of it because I was thinking about something else. I can multitask, read and think at the same time, but I don't get the words. So don't be afraid to have somebody read it to you like a story. You know, that's what I did. The first time that I needed to read it, I had my husband read it to me. So I hope that was helpful for some people. Okay. This last question. I have the worst cotton mouth, and sometimes water doesn't help it, and I swear to God, my body's like, go drink that juice. It has sugar in it. You know you want sugar. Sugar will help. But I'm like currently restricting like pretty much any sugar from my diet for like the next month until my flare-up is gone. My flare-up from benzo withdrawals. So it's like punishing me. Anything to get what it wants, really. So I'm going to address something here right quick before I jump into this next one. I get a shit ton of questions each time I post about, you know, ask an herbalist about this. And sometimes I address more, sometimes I address few, it depends. I am a human who has feelings and emotions and all kinds of, you know, human things. So I need you all, and most of you do, to remember this when you're sending me messages. And when you send me a one-word question, it's kind of like, I'm not going to reply to that. It could be anything. If I open up a message and it just says eczema, like no other, like okay, give me a topic, but be like, hey, I was wondering if you could cover eczema. I struggle with it a little bit. You don't have to give me a ton of information, but you do kind of need to treat me like a person. I'm not Google eczema. You know, like, I'm a human. And so, this next topic was given to me in kind of that way by more than one person. If I'm replying to you about this, I don't want you to feel like I'm like attacking you because you just wrote herpes. Because I want you to know that you were like one of like 10 who've done it to me about this particular topic. And I know that herpes are embarrassing. And we don't want to go into a lot of detail. But, you know, next time be like, hey, I wondered if you could cover the topic herpes, and I'd be really, you know, grateful for that if you could, or like, you know, you don't have to be like, I have breakouts on Wednesday, or, you know, like, just kind of remember that, like, you are sending a message to a person, but you were not the only one out of all the people that, I mean, like, I'm going to be messaging about 10 people today saying that I've addressed your question. And I want you to know that you were probably one of 10 who just sent me a one-word thing that said herpes, or some said genital warts, or, you know. But it was really weird. Like the awkwardness of this particular one made people like the only thing they could muster to say was herpes, and that's okay to an extent. Just, you know, I don't know. I'm gonna jump right in here. Maybe you shouldn't feel so out of comfort zone to talk about it, because let's face the fact that 75 to 80% of all American citizens have one strain or more of the 8 kinds of HSV virus in their body. Meaning, when you're embarrassed to tell somebody you have herpes, odds are good they have it too. It's almost become something that's just the norm. And it can come in different ways. But only three of those kinds cause outbreaks on the genitals. Like, I have herpes. I don't have vaginal herpes, but I get cold sores. Some people are like, cold sores aren't the same as herpes. And I've been that person. I said it all through school, I used to get really bad cold sores on my mouth. Well, you're right. They're not the same as genital herpes, but they're just as contagious. And if you have ever had a cold sore and you became pregnant with a baby and you gave birth to a baby, that baby has herpes too. You're like, why didn't I give my child herpes? Yeah, you did. It passes from your body to the next. So we really need to get away. Like, I'm not going to willingly be like, oh, you got herpes, we can have unprotected sex. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's no big deal, you might as well catch it. But I'm saying the stigma attached to it at this point kind of needs to end, and we should be more worried about, like, the clap or HIV or gonorrhea, those type of things. Like, how many people are just rocking around with syphilis out there because you can't do a swab test for syphilis? Like, how many people in our society are batshit crazy because their minds are being eaten away by syphilis? Really, I mean, like, come on. So, that aside, now that I freaked everybody out about syphilis, to go get a blood test. Well, you should have one done anyways to make sure you don't have HIV and everything else. It won't hurt you. So, the thing about herpes is it's stress triggered. I don't care if it's a cold sore on your lip or a sore on your vaginal or your reproductive area. Anywhere below your belt, you know what I'm talking about. When you get super stressed out about work, about anything, you are very susceptible to an outbreak. Or when your immune system dips low. And, from a cold, you can almost time it, I bet. If you get a nasty cold, you're gonna have a flare-up, I know, with even me, for my lips anyhow, if I get smacked in the lip, my husband looked at me, it's not like I'm getting beat on. I mean, like, I got kids and I work with all kinds of tools all the time. You'd be surprised how often I've, like, whacked myself in the lip. The other day, I was putting dishes away and this old school colander, like, that was hanging, like, somehow flipped off and it just punched me like I had it coming right in the lip. And the first thing I did was run and get some cold sore relief salve I make, but I'll tell you right now, it's just St. John's wort oil. And put that on my lip, and I put it on all day long, because almost always when I get smacked in the lip, it turns into a cold sore. But why is that? Well, because I've stressed the tissue. Now, you're not getting kicked in the crotch a bunch, I hope. But I'm trying to show you how stress of our body and our environment triggers these things. And when our immune system is low from stress and our stomach is not doing great and we just got this shitty cold and we're just like, fuck, I don't want to wake up, you are in a prime area to have an outbreak. So the best thing you can do for herpes of any kind, or for your body in general, is to support it. The better nourishment your body has, like from like the Nettle infusion, Comfrey infusion, and all these things I've talked about. And of course there's a link in the description to watch a video of how to make it, of these herbs, are going to support your body to where, like, this stress isn't going to drain you so much, And then when you get an outbreak, or even before you have one, pure St. John's wort oil, which I will have in a shop update on Sunday, take it and apply it to yourself every day. Apply it to where you break out the most every day. It's not going to hurt you externally. Put it out where it needs to go. And it's going to really help prevent this virus from coming and replicating. It's amazing. Like, when I was a kid, even into my teens, when I say I get cold sore, I don't mean that one little embarrassing, oh, somebody's gonna see it, but really nobody sees it. I mean, like one time I woke up and my entire lip was swollen. It was one solid cold sore. And, you know, it ended up filling with fluid, and then it popped, and so my entire lip for like a month was one solid scab, and I had to go to school. Yeah, that was fun. And like my dad would get them real bad, you know, the type that like go from here and all the way up to your nose. You get them in the corner of your mouth, and they're just bad. You know, I had a stressful childhood and things like that, and so it triggered them. But about, I don't know, I can't remember how old I was. My grandma had a bunch of the oil, and she's seen it on my lip. And at this point, I hadn't been able to go over there a lot for other reasons and stuff. And she goes, well, that's gonna suck. And she gives me this little jar of oil, and it was so bright red. I'm like, whoa. I almost, honest to God, thought it was Kool-Aid. I remember when she's like, you don't drink it. she was a pretty stern woman. She was like, oh, honey. She's like, put this on there. You know. And so I started using that oil, and it worked really well. And then as I got older and started traveling, you know, you kind of fall out of self-care and stuff like that. But I tell you that in the past 4 years, the last 2 especially, with benzos, I'm constantly coming off of those with stress, made cold sores come a lot. If you put St. John's wort oil or the stress sore salve, or make some of your own, you know, and put it on your lip. My cold sores now, when I do get them, which is, I don't know, I maybe get 1 or 2 a year now, I put it on there, and I put it on there, and I put it on there, especially at night when you go to bed, because then you're not like, you know, during the day you're taking drinks, you're wiping your mouth, and doing all kinds of stuff, and it gets wiped off. At night I put it on real thick. I have not had a cold sore go to the liquid stage in like 4 years. You know, you just put it on there. You just put it on, and it will not let the virus continue to grow. It stops it in its track. My mom used to tell me to use garlic on it. And I mean, that worked a little bit, but it never really stopped in the way that St. John's wort oil does. It's amazing. So, you can use this the same way on your genital outbreaks. And even if they keep going, even if you're like, oh man, it came to a head or whatever, you can still keep putting it on there, and your heal time will be less. And then when you are in an outbreak, I put it on every 30 minutes or more. Just keep putting it on there. Mine will actually be in a little spray bottle, because we don't always want to like put our hands and rub on these sores, you know. But you can take a spray bottle and squirt it on there, or you can squirt it on to like some toilet paper. You wouldn't want to use, I mean, toilet paper is absorbent, but it's not like a terry cloth where like it's going to get absorbed too much. If you saturate toilet paper, the oil is going to come off of it. So you can pat it on there. Just keep putting it on there. And then, you know, I talked about building your immune system up with nourishing herbal infusions. I would also add in blue elderberry, because it's really, really amazing at stopping viruses from replicating. It's got an amazing reputation for stopping the flu. I don't know why people think that that's the only virus that it can stop replicating. You know, stop from replicating. So get that elderberry into your diet, tincture or otherwise. So you can take St. John's wort tincture internally. I have seen St. John's wort oil and tincture like knock out an outbreak quickly for a friend. But St. John's wort is a highly reactive herbal when used internally. I mean, it reacts to medications, so it's absolutely no way in hell can you take this if you are on any kind of mental health drug. And really, if you've come off of one and it's been less than a year, please don't take it. It also reacts with other drugs, such as high blood pressure medication, birth control, allergy medicine, a lot of stuff. Basically, what it does in a nutshell is when you take this tincture, it makes the drugs in your system null and void. Like benzodiazepines, for example, or SSRIs. If you take St. John's wort tincture, you will throw yourself into withdrawal, because even though the drug is still in your system and you haven't hit the protracted withdrawal I talked about, it makes the drug in your bloodstream inert. So you just go into withdrawal, and that's not a good thing at all. especially if it's like, you know, heart medicine or birth control, or, you know, so be really, really sure to make sure if you are on medications and decide to take St. John's wort oil, that it's not one that is advised against it. You know, St. John's wort, not the oil, but the tincture, I should say, it's really been well studied because of how reactive it is. So I'd be pretty shocked if there was a medication that it wasn't supposed to be taken with and there wasn't a document about it. You know, you're going to find information about if it's dangerous to take it or not online. But remember, I'm not a doctor and all that stuff. So, I think that's it. I somehow made 5 questions stretch however long this video is by rambling. But I'm glad I got it done, because I said last time I wouldn't miss any. I really hope that this helps some people, and that I didn't chase too many people off. I know that I don't go into like super depth of like Latin names and like everything this does and why it does it. That's because I want you to take the information I gave you and use it as a stepping stone. Please do not use my word as last word. I am not gospel. You need to research the herbs mentioned on your own. And you need to at least read from 3 different papers, 3 different sources. I'll say with the essential oil stuff, you're not going to find any information by bloggers and moms who have bought into the doTERRA and the Young Life and all this crap. You're not going to find any relevant information other than them saying, oh, it's not dangerous, I'll sell you a bottle. You need to find other information by people who are non-biased. Susan Weed is a great one. You can just Google Susan Weed essential oils. Now, you'll see her now and then talk about using essential oils. I am kind of a purist in that way, where I'm just not going to use it, period. But she looks at it as these are really, really, really strong drugs and they should be a last resort. I guess I kind of feel that way too, but she gives you a lot of good perspective. She's got lots of articles talking about it. And then again, I have a bunch of stuff in my One and Only blog post. You can find it on my website about why I don't use essential oils. But everything else, as far as like herbal infusions, I want you to look into this stuff. I want you to start being your own damn advocate. Be your own doctor. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to a medical doctor and you should just heal yourself. I'm saying if we took more control over the small things, we would have less big things happening, and we wouldn't be so quick to run to the doctor every time we have a bladder infection or a cold. Or, you know, just come on. We can start doing this shit for ourselves, and we need to badly. If you liked my video, be sure to get the word out there. Be sure to subscribe. I say that because Instagram really hides my posts from you because of the new algorithm. So every time I post that I have a new episode up, I don't know, they've got something that's looking at pictures or specific words, but like only like 50 to 100 people see it. And I know earlier I said I don't care how many people like my stuff, but this kind of stuff, it is a bummer that I put all this time into it, and like I can put some random post up about how I feel and it gets like 800 likes, but if I talk to you about a video or anything like that, it only gets like 50 likes, and you're like, well, maybe people just aren't that into it. That's not what it is. You're not being shown it. So if you subscribe to my channel, I think you get notifications of when I upload another video. You know what I mean? So you know that way. And then while I do this for free, other than the half a cent I make every time you watch the video because it is monetized, if you feel like I've helped you, I would love support. I'm not asking for it in that way that you have to give it or feel bad for it. But if you want to buy something from my shop, cool. If because you felt like I answered your question, or if you want to go to if you're in the US, you can go to the link, my bio here, and there's a thing that says buy me a cup of tea on the right hand side. If you're from a different country, YouTube doesn't allow you to make donations to me. So you can go to my website, which is wildwoodapothecary.org, And at the bottom of Ask an Herbalist page, there's a donation button. You know, and I use it. I use that money. I'm not rich. I do amazing with my shop, but that doesn't, I mean, I got bills. It all goes to good. I'm not buying cigarettes or coffee, I can guarantee you that. So it will be a cup of tea. But if you have a question of your own, a follow-up question, anything like that, video comments are turned off for the sake of sanity. So if you have a question, you need to go to wildwoodapothecary.org. Almost forgot my website there. So go to wildwoodapothecary.org, enter my website, click on where it says Ask an Herbalist, and there's a form there where you can submit your question and read more about it. And you can read about me on the website too. Definitely be sure to follow me on Instagram if that's not where you came here from. I'm at She Is of the Woods, and in between all those words underscores, but there's also a link in my bio. I think I got it all out. So I'm going to eat some lunch and get back to work. I'll see you guys next time.